Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Today we will discuss a great literary piece of work and about the writer. The name of the writer is Longinus, and he wrote a book actually in the form of letters named On the Sublime. So we will discuss about the authorship because it is controversial, who was the real author of On the Sublime, and some of the important points related to the writer as well as to the critical work on the Sublime. So first of all, let us discuss about the author, that who is actually the author of this piece of literature on the Sublime. It is believed that this piece was written in first century, as we are now in 21st century. So go back to 20 centuries. So in first century this piece was written, and it is believed somehow the name of the writer was Longinus. Then the name was confused with another Longinus who was an author in the third century. But the historians and the literary writers, they kept on working on it, and finally they concluded that the author of On the Sublime is Longinus, Pseudo Longinus. So Pseudo Longinus means a kind of unknown writer. There is no certainty actually who wrote it, because about one third of the book, which was actually the concluding remarks about of the author, they are also missing. So this work is actually dedicated to Pseudo Longinus, and this work was written in first century, and it was not actually preserved, and first printed in 1554. Before that, it was just in epistolary form. So it was organized and properly published in 1554. So, this name I have mentioned here, Cassius Longinus. He was a historian, literary writer, or rhetorician of third century. Uh, he is actually not the author of this On the Sublime. So Pseudo Longinus and this Cassius Longinus, they were confused, because Cassius Longinus was author of third century and Longinus was author of first century. So Cassius Longinus, the author, the writer and historian of third century, is actually not the author of this On the Sublime. The writer Longinus, he belongs to first century. It is a great literary work on criticism after Aristotle, after Plato. It is considered as one of the greatest work in Greeks. As far as Aristotle's work is concerned, the Poetics, and Plato's book, The Republic, they were all famous. And this Longinus, because we have confusion about its authorship, not because of the time, like we are talking about 20 centuries ago, but Aristotle and Plato were his predecessors. They wrote before him. Their works are preserved, their works are written by their names, and there is no confusion about it, because they were the renowned figures in Greek at that time: Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, and others. As far as this Longinus is concerned, he was not as famous as Aristotle, Plato, and other Greek writers. That is why, when the writer is not in the limelight, the work is always controversial about its authorship, most of the times. Uh, then we have, finally, its name is Pseudo Longinus. This was all about the authorship. So keep in your mind that the work was actually written in first century, and the name of the writer was given. The name given to writer was Pseudo Longinus. Most of the times, the people, they mispronounce it Longinus or Longinus, but this word, this noun, it we read as Longinus. Now let's talk about On the Sublime. Actually, it dates back to first century AD, and then it's one third part is missing. One third part means if there are 100 pages, so about 33, 34 pages they are missing, and that was the last part of the book where the writer writes its concluding remarks. So keep in your mind one thing: the concluding remarks, or what we call it, a public speaking, where the writer addresses to the public, to the general readers and the public. That part is missing. And on the Sublime, why this name is given? This Sublime is a word which means to get excellence, to greatest of soul, imitation, or imagery, or greatness of spirit, or greatness of work, or greatness to achieve greatness in literary work. That is actually sublime, what Longinus wanted to tell us. So this was first time that the writer's inner feelings were also involved in writing. So Longinus was the first critical writer who told us that unless and until the imagination power and intellectual power and observing power of the writer is involved in the writing, that piece of writing can never achieve sublimity or greatness in literature. So writers actually, the works produced by the writers, they are actually their inner feelings, not only the incidents that they describe. For instance, if a writer is talking about a historical incident, so writing a history, if he is just quoting the lines what actually happened in history, that will not be interesting for the readers, unless and until he also applies in his mind to differentiate between right and wrong, to differentiate how the readers will get attracted and how they will not get attracted towards that specific piece of writing. So you can say it sublimity is echo of greatness in spirit or produced by greatness of soul, imitation or imagery. Then it was first time, as I already told you, that the writers, they were not believed as only the historians, but actually it was written by Longinus that writer must have some intellectual and imagination powers to produce greatness and to bring greatness in his work. Some other points about it, about this on the Sublime, about he discusses about 50 authors, 50 authors, and out of which Plato and Homer and Demosthenes, these are the writers which he mostly discussed, and he mostly, you can say, criticized, not actually criticized, but he actually examined their works, and he believes that they have achieved sublimity in their works. So according to Longinus, Homer, Plato, and Demosthenes, they have uh, achieved greatness or moral excellence in their works that attracts the reader, and they have also applied their intellectual capability in their writing. And one most first, as I told you, that first time it was written that a writer must use his own imagination and intellectual power to bring sublimity. And second most important point was that it was first time in Greek, because Greeks, they are considered as, you can say, a type of atheists, or type the people who live away from religion. We cannot call them atheists, those who do not believe in God, but somehow when we talk about Aristotle, when we talk about Plato, when we read their work, analyze them, so we hardly find any reference of religion. There was no reference of religion mentioned in the books written by Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, and others. So you can say they were the liberals of their time. So this was first time that a Greek author, this Longinus, he used some biblical references, references from the Bible. Sorry, references from Bible. References from Bible means taking references from religion to prove his point, to take examples and to quote his own thoughts with reference to the religion. So this was first time that religion was mentioned by a Greek author in the history of Greek writers. So he also gave references from Bible, and this it is in the form of letters. This on the Sublime, it was not actually written a book. These were the letters, epistolary form. It is written in epistolary form, and epistolary form means in the form of letters. And the most important point is he sent all those letters, he addressed all those letters to this Trentinus. So all the letters and the subject, or the one who addressed, he addressed this all these letters as dear Trentinus. As we write a letter to write something to dear sir or dear sister or dear friend, so he wrote his name dear Trentinus. So Trentinus was, why he wrote it to Trentinus, because in his times this Trentinus, he was one of the greatest literary writers who had achieved sublimity, or who had great command on literary works according to Longinus. So he took 50 authors to examine their work, and he mentioned the points how a writer can achieve sublimity, and in the form of letters he wrote all those letters to Trentinus, and those letters were combined in the form of book and published in 1554 with the title of On the Sublime. And in modern writers, 18th century, 17th century, the writers, the famous writers John Dryden and Alexander Pope, they were directly influenced from the work of Longinus. So we can see a reflection of Longinus' work criticism in the works of John Dryden and Alexander Pope.